2 days before my birthday, my mom texted. We took $2,000 from your savings. Your sister deserved a designer bag for graduation. Then came the add-on. You're not materialistic. You'll understand. I smiled, froze the transfer, and flagged the withdrawal. At checkout, her card failed. Her phone lit up with the words she wasn't expecting: refund reversed, insufficient funds. I stared at my phone screen for what felt like forever. I wasn't even angry at first, just completely stunned by the sheer audacity of it all. Then I started laughing, not because it was funny, but because it was so incredibly bold that I almost had to admire it. They didn't ask. They didn't even pretend it was a loan. They just took my money like it belonged to them, with some casual justification about family thrown on top. That wasn't just any random account they'd raided. This was my emergency fund, money I'd been saving since college while working full-time jobs and side gigs. I had real plans for that money. Maybe graduate school, maybe a down payment on a condo, maybe just the peace of mind that comes with having a safety net. Definitely not a $2,000 handbag for someone who'd already gotten a brand new car for her 18th birthday and a fully paid spring break trip to Cabo. Caroline is my younger sister, 21, fresh out of college, completely obsessed with Instagram influencers, and constantly talking about how designer pieces hold their value better than regular bags. My parents had always spoiled her more than me, but this was next-level favoritism. Instead of responding to their text, I opened my banking app and froze the account immediately. Then I filed a report for unauthorized withdrawal. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I knew they had no idea what was coming. I waited until the money was back in my account, then kept waiting. Because I knew they had no clue yet. They just assumed they could take it, and I'd roll over like always. That Saturday, they invited me to go shopping with them. We'll grab lunch after, my mom said cheerfully, like nothing had happened. I played along perfectly. We went to the mall and, of course, ended up in one of those overpriced boutiques with glass display cases and security guards stationed at every corner. Caroline was already carrying the bag like it was hers, stroking the leather and posing for selfies. My mom beamed like they just performed some act of charity. At the checkout counter, the cashier smiled professionally, scanned the bag, and my mom confidently swiped her card. Declined. She blinked in confusion and tried a different card. Declined again. Then her phone buzzed with a notification. I saw the screen from where I was standing. Refund reversed. Insufficient funds. She looked at my dad with panic creeping into her eyes. Caroline turned toward me with this accusatory stare, like I'd personally sabotaged her moment. I didn't flinch. I didn't say a single word. Just stood there and watched the whole thing unfold. We walked out of that store empty-handed, and nobody said anything during the entire ride home. The silence was deafening. That night, I got another text from my mom. We thought you were better than this. Money isn't everything. Your sister deserves to feel special too. Still no apology. Still no acknowledgement that they'd literally stolen from me. That's when something inside me finally snapped. This wasn't just about a designer bag. This was about years and years of being treated like the backup plan, the dependable one, the person they could take from without asking because I'd always just swallow it and move on. Well, I was done swallowing it. And if they wanted to act like I was the selfish one, fine. Let's see how they handled it when I actually started behaving that way. This was just the beginning. After the mall incident, things went quiet for exactly 5 days. No apologies, no attempts to explain themselves, nothing. Then my dad texted me like absolutely nothing had happened, asking if I could take a look at his laptop because it was acting up again. Like I was still the family IT guy, and not the son they just robbed of $2,000. I ignored the message completely. The next day, my mom sent one of those vague, non-apology texts. We just wanted Caroline to feel celebrated. Maybe we should have talked to you first, but don't let money come between us. No acknowledgement that it was my money. Just vibes and guilt trips. Then I saw Caroline's Instagram post. She was holding the bag with this huge smile, caption reading, "Finally got her. Hard work pays off." Hard work? The only effort she'd put in was sending me a passive-aggressive thank you emoji 2 hours after they tried to buy it with my stolen cash. I guess they'd found another way to pay for it. Maybe a credit card, maybe my dad sold some of his expensive tech gadgets. Didn't matter. What mattered was that she still posted it like she'd earned it. That's when I noticed something else in the comments. Her friends were hyping her up, congratulating her, and one of them wrote, "Can't wait to see you wearing it at the grad gala." Grad gala? That was the first I'd heard of it. Some fancy formal event her university throws for graduates and their families. I was never invited. Never even mentioned. I asked Caroline directly, "So when is this gala thing?" Her response came back lightning fast. "Oh, I didn't think you'd want to come. It's more for close family." Close family? I didn't respond to that message. I just sat there absorbing what she'd said. They took my money, lied to me, cut me out of family events like I was some distant relative they barely tolerated, and then expected me to keep playing the role of responsible older brother whenever it suited them. That's when I decided this wasn't going to be one of those situations where I quietly held a grudge. This wasn't going to be a "let's be the bigger person" moment. I was going to make them regret treating me this way. And I wasn't going to yell or block their numbers or cause any big dramatic scenes. I was going to wait patiently and hit them exactly where it would hurt the most. It started the following week. My mom texted asking if I could transfer $300 to help cover medication for my dad. She said the insurance deductible hadn't reset yet and they were tight on cash. "Yeah, of course," I replied. "I'll take care of it tonight." I didn't send anything. The next day, "Hey, did you send that transfer?" I tried checking but the app froze. "We'll figure it out tomorrow." "Absolutely, just finishing up some work stuff. I'll handle it after dinner." I lied smoothly. 2 more days passed. "William, this isn't funny anymore. We really need that money," I finally replied. "I didn't think you were materialistic." "You'll understand." Radio silence. Then the anger started flooding in. First, my mom sent me a whole paragraph about how I was being spiteful over something that's already over. Then my dad tried the guilt angle, asking how I could treat them this way after everything they'd done for me. That's when it really hit me. They genuinely thought they were the victims in this situation. So I decided to take things up another notch. See, last year I'd given them my old Camry when I upgraded to a newer car. It wasn't in perfect condition, but it ran fine, and I'd kept it insured under my name because it was just easier that way. Technically, it was still mine. So one morning, while they were out running errands, I showed up with my spare key and drove it right off their driveway. Parked it at my apartment complex and immediately canceled the insurance. The text came flooding in within hours. "Caroline, where's the car?" "Mom, are you insane? That's our only transportation." "Dad, you've made your point. Bring it back immediately." I didn't respond to any of them. 3 hours later. "We need the car for Caroline's job interview tomorrow. She's completely freaking out." That actually made me laugh out loud, because for the first time, they were the ones being affected by consequences. Not me, them. They begged. They offered to talk things out. My mom even tried calling from a different number when I kept ignoring her original one. I didn't budge an inch. They were finally starting to understand what it felt like to be treated the way they'd been treating me. And honestly, I was just getting started. With the car gone, I think that's when it really sank in for them that I wasn't bluffing or throwing some temporary tantrum. That weekend, I didn't hear a single word from any of them, which was completely unusual. Normally my mom would be blowing up my phone with messages. Instead, total silence. I figured they were probably regrouping, trying to figure out how to fix the situation without actually having to apologize to me. But Monday morning, I got a text from Caroline that was pure, concentrated blame. "Congrats. I missed my interview. Hope you're proud." No explanation, no context, just making it sound like I had personally driven over there and sabotaged her dreams. So I replied, "Maybe you can return the bag and buy a bicycle." She blocked me immediately after that. Then things started getting louder. Tuesday night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was one of my dad's coworkers, apparently. My dad had been ranting about me at the office, telling everyone I'd stolen their car and left them stranded, like some vindictive little brat. I guess he didn't expect someone to actually call me and ask, "Hey man, what's really going on over there?" I kept my explanation brief, told him the car's title was in my name, and I wasn't feeling particularly generous lately. He laughed and said, "Sounds like they messed with the wrong person." Exactly. By Thursday, my mom completely cracked. She sent me an entire page of text about how I was tearing the family apart, And choosing money and bitterness over love. She said I was becoming someone she didn't recognize. I sent back one line. That's because you never really knew me. Just what I could give you. She didn't reply to that. The next week, all the requests stopped. The calls stopped. I think they finally realized they had absolutely no leverage over me anymore. Caroline kept me blocked. My dad went back to pretending I didn't exist. My mom tried switching from emotional manipulation to being cold and distant instead. Then came my grandmother's birthday, one of those big family gatherings where everyone shows up no matter what personal drama is happening. I hadn't planned on going, but then I figured, why not? I wasn't hiding from anyone. If anything, I was proud of what I'd done. Proud that I hadn't folded like I always used to. When I walked into my grandmother's house, my parents were already there, sitting on the far side of the living room like they were trying to maintain as much physical distance from me as possible. They looked up when I entered, but neither of them said a word. Caroline wasn't there. I asked my aunt where she was. Oh, she said she was busy. Went to some cafe with her friends instead. On our grandmother's birthday. Real classy. The dinner table was full of relatives, everyone talking and laughing and passing plates around. My parents sat there like statues, my mom avoiding eye contact completely, my dad acting like I was some neighbor who'd wandered in by mistake. It was awkward as hell, but then about halfway through dinner, my grandmother stood up and tapped her glass with her fork. I wasn't going to say anything, she announced to the whole table. But this has been bothering me too much. I heard what happened. The entire room went dead silent. She looked directly at my mom and dad. You took his money without asking, then got mad when he wouldn't give you more. And you let your daughter treat her brother like a stranger over a handbag. A handbag? Shame on you. Nobody moved. My mom tried to say something, but my grandmother raised her hand to cut her off. Don't. This family has always bent over backward for you too, and now the one person who's never asked for anything finally says no, and you act like he betrayed you. Dead silence for about 10 seconds. Then my uncle, the one who never gets involved in family drama, actually started laughing. Not mean laughter, just this kind of relieved. Finally someone said it. Laughter. Well, that explains why you've been acting so weird all month, he said to my parents. I thought you were just going through something. The tension in the room completely shifted. Instead of awkwardness, there was this sense of relief, like everyone had been feeling the weirdness and passive-aggressive comments for weeks but nobody knew what was causing it. My parents didn't say another word for the rest of the evening. And Caroline? She missed the whole thing, too busy drinking overpriced lattes and pretending to be an influencer. On the drive home that night, I realized I didn't feel angry anymore. Just done. Completely done with all of it. That was the night I decided to write this whole story down. Not because I needed sympathy or validation, but because I know there are people out there who've dealt with the exact same thing, being the good kid, who always helps out, until the moment you stop giving, and suddenly you're painted as the villain. I was never the villain in this story. They just didn't like that I finally stopped playing the fool. After my grandmother's birthday dinner, things didn't go quiet. They went completely dead. Like something had been buried and nobody wanted to acknowledge where the grave was. My parents stopped texting entirely. Caroline stayed invisible on social media for weeks. It was like I'd been quietly exiled from the family, except nobody had the courage to actually say it out loud. And honestly, I didn't miss them at all. For the first time in years, I had weekends where my phone wasn't constantly buzzing with requests for help. No more fake. Hope you're doing well. Messages that inevitably ended with, can you help us out with something? I got my evenings back, started sleeping better, ate at nicer restaurants, finally booked that trip to Seattle I'd been putting off forever. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel like I owed anyone anything except myself. But peace doesn't last long in families like mine, because once the silence stops being about anger, it turns into desperation. It started with a single text from my mom, 3 weeks after the birthday dinner. Hi, I know things have been hard between us, but we're in a bit of a situation. Just something small we'd really appreciate help with. I ignored it. The next day, a follow-up from my dad. It's just a plumbing issue. $600. Not asking for a gift, just a short-term loan until payday. A loan. From the same people who thought theft was an acceptable birthday surprise. I stared at the message for a few minutes, then replied, Sure, I'll send it by Friday. I had absolutely no intention of sending anything. Friday came and went. Nothing from me. Saturday morning, another message. Hey, just checking if that transfer went through. Haven't seen anything yet. Ran into something unexpected. I replied. Can do it next week. They bought it, because they wanted to believe it. Because deep down, they still thought I was the same William who once used his entire tax refund to replace Caroline's broken phone without even being asked. But I wasn't that person anymore. Not even close. A week later. The leak's gotten worse. The whole hallway smells now. Please. I left it on read. Then came the guilt trip. I just don't understand what we did that was so unforgivable. So I reminded them. You stole from me, you shut me out of family events, and now you're begging for help like I'm the one who owes you something. I don't. No reply for 2 full days. Then Caroline texted from a new number, new tone. You've ruined everything. No hello, no explanation, just pure blame. Like I was the one who broke something sacred, instead of the people who raided my savings account like it was their personal piggy bank. You ruined it the day you chose a handbag over your brother. I replied. Blocked instantly. Again. I think that's when they finally realized the old dynamic was completely over. The version of me they'd been used to, the one who never said no, who always covered for their mistakes and poor planning, that guy was gone forever. And the new version wasn't interested in playing their games. 2 weeks after that, I ran into my uncle at my cousin's birthday dinner. He pulled me aside and said, Your parents are telling everyone you abandoned them. That you turned cold for no reason. I asked what he thought about that. He shrugged. I told them they made their bed. Your grandmother wasn't wrong about any of it. He paused, then said something I hadn't expected. You know, your mom's been like this since we were kids. Always thought she was owed something, never wanted to work for anything she couldn't manipulate someone else into giving her. I'd never heard him say anything like that before. Never seen that side of him, someone who could see through all the performance and manipulation. It made one thing crystal clear. This wasn't a one-time mistake or some temporary lapse in judgment. This was who they were, fundamentally. And it wasn't going to change. Later that night, I opened my notes app and started writing this whole story out. I didn't plan on sharing it at first, just wanted to put it somewhere so I wouldn't forget how everything unfolded. But the more I wrote, the more I realized there were probably people out there who needed to hear it. That sometimes cutting off the people closest to you isn't cruel or heartless. It's absolutely necessary for your own mental health and self-respect. And no, I haven't talked to them since. They haven't reached out to me either. Not even to say goodbye. 2 months passed without a single word. Not from Caroline, not from my parents, not even one of those passive-aggressive group texts with birthday reminders or forwarded memes. Complete radio silence. And I had every intention of keeping it that way. Then, in the middle of a perfectly normal Tuesday at work, I got an email. Not a text, an actual email. Subject line. Important, please read. It was from my dad. 3 short paragraphs saying they needed my help. Not financial help this time, legal help. Apparently Caroline had gotten into a car accident. Nothing too serious, but the other driver was pressing for damages, and here's where it gets absolutely ridiculous. They wanted me to speak on her behalf because I supposedly had some connection to the other driver's insurance company. A huge stretch based on a job I'd worked 2 years ago. No apology for the months of silence. No explanation for why they'd suddenly broken their own no-contact rule. Just, you're good with words, you know people, please talk to them for her. I stared at that email for 10 full minutes. Didn't reply. A day later, another email, this one longer, from my mom. She said the other driver was being dramatic and greedy, and Caroline was scared she might get sued. She asked me to just make a few calls and help keep this off Caroline's record. Then she casually dropped this line in the middle. It would mean a lot, after everything we've been through. After everything we've been through. Like it was some mutual hardship we'd endured together. That night, I got curious and did a little digging. Asked a friend who still worked in insurance to look into the case. Turns out Caroline wasn't just in an accident. She had run a red light, clipped another car, and then left the scene. Not far, just down the block, but enough to trigger an official report. The only reason it didn't become a criminal hit-and-run was because the other driver had followed her and gotten the whole thing on video. So now they wanted me to smooth it over with my connections. I replied to my dad's email. Did you forget she left the scene? You think I'm going to stick my neck out for someone who wouldn't even invite me to her graduation party? He replied 2 hours later. So you're really going to let your sister get dragged through court over a mistake? That was the absolute last straw. I sent one sentence back. You made your choices. Now live with them. No reply for a while. Until about a week later, when a mutual cousin messaged me. Hey, are you coming to the family cookout next weekend? Everyone's talking about it. Apparently your mom's trying to make peace. I hadn't been invited to any cookout. So naturally, I showed up. No announcement, no warning. Just walked in with a 12-pack of sodas and greeted my uncles like nothing unusual had happened. My mom's face when she saw me was absolutely priceless. Like she'd been caught in the middle of staging a performance, and didn't have time to reset all the props. Caroline wasn't there initially. I figured maybe she was avoiding the whole situation until someone let it slip that she was upstairs. Resting. 10 minutes later, my grandmother pulled me aside. I thought you weren't coming. I told her I hadn't been invited. She frowned. That's funny. Your mother said you didn't want to come. Said you were still processing things. That's when it hit me like a truck. They were rewriting the entire story. Telling the whole extended family that I was the one creating distance, that I was being bitter, that they had tried to make things right but I was too proud to let it go. I was done with their version of events. I walked into the backyard, waited for everyone to gather around the grill, and told the entire story from start to finish. The stolen money, the designer bag, the lies, the manipulation, the car, the fake accident story, the emails, everything. People were quiet at first. Then my uncle, the same one from my grandmother's birthday, shook his head and said, Jesus! And here I thought you were just being cold for no reason. Another cousin added, Your mom told me you were the one who offered the money. Said you wanted Caroline to feel celebrated. Not even close, I said. By the end of the evening, people were looking at my parents completely differently. Like they were finally seeing them without decades of built-up goodwill and automatic benefit of the doubt. And Caroline? She never came downstairs. Someone mentioned later that she'd left through the back door when she heard I was telling the real story. Of course she did. They'd wanted to erase what actually happened and twist it into something that made them look like the good guys. But I wasn't going to let them control the narrative anymore. This wasn't about revenge at that point. It was just about truth. And I was finally free to tell it. After the cookout, there wasn't some big explosion or dramatic confrontation. No screaming matches, no heated family group chat arguments, no surprise visits to hash things out. It was worse than that. It was completely empty. They went quiet. Fully, totally, completely quiet. Like someone had pulled the plug on a TV show that had been running way too many seasons. No texts, no backhanded voicemails, no surprise drop-bys. Nothing at all. And I left it exactly that way. A few cousins reached out afterward, mostly to ask things like, Did all that really happen? Or, Your mom's been acting like the victim for months. What's the real story? I told them the same thing I told everyone at the cookout. They used me for years, and when I finally pushed back, they turned on me. Simple as that. My uncle, the one who'd laughed when my grandmother called them out at her birthday dinner, told me that Caroline had gone completely silent for days after the cookout. Wouldn't answer phone calls, didn't post anything on social media, didn't even come downstairs when people visited the house. My guess? She finally realized that the extended family wasn't buying her version of events anymore. The golden child routine had cracked wide open, and there was no script for what came next. Then, randomly one afternoon about a month later, I got a voicemail from my dad. He didn't sound angry or even sad. Just tired. William, I guess this is where it ends. I don't know what else to say. You've made your decision, and we'll stop reaching out. If you ever change your mind, you know where we are. No apology. No taking ownership of anything they'd done. Just the quiet shuffle of someone backing out of a room they'd set on fire themselves. I didn't call him back. Didn't want to. Instead, I got on with my life. Really got on with it. I started spending more time with people who didn't treat me like a walking ATM with feelings. Went hiking more, took a solo trip to Portland, started dating someone who didn't even blink when I mentioned I wasn't close to my family. And that old Camry? Still parked in my apartment complex. Tires are a little worn now, one of the wiper blades is cracked, but I started up once a week just to keep the engine running. Not because I plan to drive it anywhere, but because it reminds me that I made a choice. I took back something that was mine. About a month ago, my grandmother called and invited me over for dinner. Just her, no setup, no family drama, no hidden agenda. She made her famous ribs and cornbread, and we spent most of the evening talking about her garden and her neighbor's ridiculous drama. Then, out of nowhere, she looked at me and said, "You know, I'm proud of you." Took me long enough. I laughed. Proud of what exactly? She shrugged. Of finally saying no. They've walked all over you since you were a kid, but not anymore. And they hate that. I don't know why, but that hit me harder than anything else anyone had said through this whole mess. I've been fine since then. Better than fine, actually. I don't carry that guilt anymore, that voice in my head whispering. But they're your family. Because real family doesn't steal from you and then ask for more. Real family doesn't punish you for setting boundaries. And the funniest part? They still act like I'm the one who abandoned them. But I didn't walk away. They pushed me away, step by step, decision by decision. I just made sure the door locked behind me. That's how it ended. No closure, no make-up dinner, no tearful reconciliation. Just silence and the kind of freedom that comes with finally putting yourself first. So yeah, if you're reading this and wondering if it's okay to cut people off when they push you too far, it absolutely is. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is nothing at all. Just leave, and let them deal with the echo.